You pay, you stay, you don't, you won't. How much more simple is it? How many borrowers are buying houses who didn't understand that? And if they didn't understand that, then what business did they have buying, period? So to blame coercive mortgagees, coercive lenders, undisclosing real estate agents on this is really to pass the buck. Borrowers borrowed with the perception that home values would never stop increasing, and that's the problem. They started decreasing, and they ended up in this trouble.
First, I want to start with the sales picture. From what we understand here across the state, the negative numbers continue for your state.
Oh, yeah, we can't seem to get away from them. The first quarter of this year looked great. Sales were increasing as we led up to April, which was the expiration of the home buyer tax credit, and then we hit a wall in April. And this month, we've seen home sales decline by 20% here in Tampa Bay. We've seen prices drop by 9%. We see inventory up 13% over this time last year. We even see the kind of homes people are buying down about smaller in size, about 5%.
I've talked to a lot of real estate people who say, hey, we called these banks, I won't mention their names, and they just aren't returning our phone calls, or they lose paperwork. We send it to them 2 or 3 times, and that exacerbates the situation horribly.
Yeah, they're notoriously bad for having a process that anyone can understand. And we got to remember that these are the same lenders who established institutions and programs that allowed people to invest in properties that they couldn't afford. And now they can't even follow their own simple guidelines and get a foreclosure done properly. So really, we shouldn't expect anything but where we are right now, which is a mess.
So bottom line in the real estate market, do you think that we've hit the bottom, and will this help clear things out wherever this goes?
Any kind of freeze on prices and any kind of prohibition against selling this inventory may force prices to stabilize, because clearly that foreclosed inventory is not going to be selling. Yeah. People are going to be buying the more expensive homes at a higher rate. So that will provide a temporary relief. But you got to remember, as soon as this moratorium is lifted, even if it's a self-fulfilled moratorium, all these homes are going to come back on the market again. Prices are going to be pulled down again by this. And so as much as it makes me cringe, I don't think we're at the bottom yet, because this problem has to be fixed before we reach it.
So with all the confusion surrounding the foreclosure process, is the hype worse than the actual bite? Peter Murphy is a real estate consultant and CEO of HomeEncounter.com in Tampa. What is the outlook for real estate? You're in Florida. You're an expert on real estate. What does this mean for the local markets when you dig down and you get right into the court system down there? Does this just stop everything cold?
It does, and it already has. Since the first of the month, we've seen here locally, we've seen 15% of all foreclosure listings pulled from the market. Down in Miami, we've seen as many as 30% of listings pulled. So whether or not anyone's talking moratorium, we're already seeing the effects of it by a huge drop in the total volume of available foreclosure listings, and it's taking a huge toll on the local market.
What do you see as the real-world impact in those communities? Do you see it creating more foreclosures? Do you think that more homes will be lost simply because of that kind of domino effect you see with foreclosures?
Yeah, it will. The market's so interrelated right now. Right off the bat, what we've seen is that people who had contracts to buy these foreclosed homes have their contracts pulled from them the day before closing. At the closing table, they're not able to buy their dream foreclosure homes. And that has a huge psychological impact, obviously, on people. But in addition to that, you've got whole firms that have been set up to sell these homes and service these homes. They're going to go out of business when they can't do that. You've got municipalities and homeowners associations who are hoping to sell these homes so they can clean up their acts, and they're not going to be able to get those things sold and closed and cleaned out. You're going to have a slew of lawsuits that are going to come up against homeowners and title insurance and former homeowners, and as well as current people who have bought these homes thinking they had clear title. And there's going to be a slew of lawsuits stack up against those people.
Today we're going to be talking about short sales. Let's start out exactly what is a short sale and how was it, in quotes, supposed to work?
Well, a short sale is when a seller is trying to get their lender to allow them to sell their house for less money than what they actually owe on their mortgage. So that's how it's supposed to work. A seller goes to a lender and says, I know I owe $200,000, but will you let me sell it for $100,000? And the lender says, sure, if you pay me back that $100,000 deficiency over the next few years, you can do that. They shake hands, the seller gets out of his house, a happy buyer gets into a home cheaply.
Is that because, as we saw with all of these bankruptcies that these banks were signing off of and these foreclosures and the defaults, is that because the numbers are just so huge that nobody can really keep track of all of this stuff.
Well, it is huge. It's giant. And it's also because it's not the bank's business to go about forgiving debt. They're there to make money on debt, to collect interest payments, not to go about and modify mortgages. They've literally had to set up a new shop to re-underwrite tens of thousands of loans and to decide if going the short sale route is better interest than going through foreclosure.
What about in neighborhoods where homes have literally been sitting vacant, and some have for a couple of years, or people have been living in them not paying any money for them for a couple of years? Because those have to be cleared out of the market before the rest of the market can recover.
They do, and it's doing a ton of damage to the market. Short sales alone right now, we've got 19 months of inventory of short sales on the market right now. And so you've got people who are living in those homes without paying taxes, without paying their mortgages, without paying their homeowners association fees. They're getting off scot-free and living there. And so yes, there's a huge impact that takes on the local market, and it's going to be a long time before that cleans up.
Are banks still holding on to these homes? They don't want too many of them to get out on the market. Or, I mean, you wouldn't think they would. And do they have the power to hold large blocks of homes that would affect the way that all the other homes are sold as far as price is concerned?
Yes, they do, and yes, they are. You drive down streets and you see little pieces of paper stuck to the windows of these homes and not one for sale sign in the yard. That is a home being held up by a bank in some stage of foreclosure. Do they have the ability to speed up that process? Absolutely. But is it in their best interest to? Not necessarily, because if they dump all this on the market at one time, imagine the force that will have on prices, driving it right down. If they can gradually leak it on the market, they might be able to get more from them at a resale.
They have suggested, or at least it was leaked, that they suggested maybe we need to get rid of the primary home mortgage deduction.
Yeah, that's breaking news out yesterday. That would be awful for the market. You talk about putting a nail in the coffin. What would be the incentive for anyone to buy a home? If we have no decline in prices, if we have got no tax incentive for owning one, the only reason to buy it would be some kind of an emotional connection to owning a home. There would be no good financial reason to do so if you take away that incentive and you're in a down market.